counting 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Special Committee of Council June meeting, the meeting to hear budget submissions. I'd like to welcome my fellow councillors and council officers and members of the general public who may be tuning in tonight for this meeting. Firstly, I'd like to call on each councillor and ask them verbally to confirm that they can see all councillors and hear the proceedings. Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Councillor Ravi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can see all councillors, council officers and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Sladden.
I can see all councillors and council officers and can hear the proceedings. Thank you.
And Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
I'll now ask each councillor to raise their hand that they can hear and see all other councillors. Thank you. Madam CEO, do we have any apologies for the meeting tonight?
No apologies, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. The statement of commitment. As councillors of Mansfield Shire, we are committed to ensuring our behaviour meets the standards set by the Mansfield Shire Councillor Code of Conduct and Councillor Charter. We will, at all times, faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in us by the community. Councillors, could you please confirm your statement of commitment? Councillor Holcomb.
I confirm my statement of commitment.
Councillor Ravi.
I confirm my statement of commitment.
Councillor Sladden.
I confirm my commitment.
And Councillor Webb.
I confirm my commitment.
Thanks, councillors. I'll now ask Councillor Holcomb to recite the acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Our meeting is being held on the lands of the Taungurung people and we wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. We would also like to pay our respects to their elders past and present and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. I'll now call on each councillor and ask them to declare whether they have any conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda. Councillor Holcomb.
Mr. Mayor, I have no conflicts of interest in relation to any agenda items.
Councillor Ravi.
I have no conflict of interest in relation to any agenda items.
Councillor Sladden.
I confirm that I have no conflicts of interest on any of the agenda items before us. Thank you.
And Councillor Webb.
I have no conflicts of interest in relation to any agenda items tonight.
Thanks, councillors. Deputations. We have 2 deputations tonight. Is that right, Madam CEO?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Item 8.1.1 is the consideration of submissions to the proposed budget 2022-2023. The responsible officer is Manager of Business and Performance, Tony Cooper.
Yes.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just for the moment, I've just noticed on the report it does refer to council in the recommendation, and just letting councillors know that that should say that the committee, because it's a meeting of a committee of council, not council tonight.
Yep. Okay. So on item 8.1.1, we have a budget submission. The first budget submission is from Startup Shakeup, and Alina Young, who's the managing director, is going to talk to us talk to that submission.
Thank you very much for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Hi, Alina. Yes, welcome.
Welcome, lovely. Thank you. Good to meet you all.
We can hear you,
So-
but we can't see you.
Oh,
I'm not sure whether you're...
always helps if I start my video.
There we
doesn't it?
go. Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's
You'd
better.
think after 2
Hi.
years that I'd know, wouldn't you? Now I
So,
understand I've got 5 minutes. Is that right?
3 minutes, Alina.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then
So-
for questions afterwards.
Okay, lovely. So I've sent through the budget submission with all the papers, and I will talk to that. My reason for wanting to present today is that innovation is a core Mansfield value. And in your plan, you're seeking to attract staff, industries, and businesses of the future. So as a regional innovation network, this is something that we focus on, that we will continue to focus on. And I wanted to thank Mansfield Shire for your support since 2018. As a result of this, we're now an independent standalone not-for-profit with a skills-based board. So paper 2 was the Mansfield Partner Overview. And in this, the calendar year 2021 is the last one that we have full data for. Mansfield's contribution that year was $10,000 plus $10,000 towards the digital literacy project. And we leveraged that to $110,000 worth of service delivery. That's to in-depth 10 startups in your region with an estimated $1.9 million turnover between them and 35 staff. We also worked in some way that calendar year with over 700 small and medium enterprises, 549 hours of service delivery, and 1,400 touch points. So a touch point could be anything from them attending an online meeting, an online masterclass, for example, or it might be that they actually opened the newsletter, not just that they got the newsletter. You were very active in Mansfield in the Workforce Digital Literacy Project, and this allowed us to do an individual report, which I've shared with your Economic Development Committee, showing the digital profile of Mansfield. Mansfield's just under our regional averages, and our regional averages are about 10% below those of Melbourne. 95% of this difference is due to our lack of digital ability in this region. The survey also showed us that across the region, agriculture is a sector with particularly poor digital ability. And I think when I've spoken with people on the ground in agriculture, they're not surprised to hear this. Access is a real issue, but the ability to use that access. So this is something that we're going to address in an agricultural project next year with another shire. And then those businesses involved in those kinds of projects can become more competitive. So what does this mean looking forwards? Paper number 5 is a schedule of activities, and paper number 7 is a proposed MOU that we're sharing with everybody. Our focus is going to be innovation for startups, but also increasing numbers of projects for small businesses, particularly in the digital literacy side of things. We've got a whole new project called Click Region, and every shire that participates next year will be given an allocation of free places to the membership scheme in that Click Region education website. So services for startups, services for existing businesses. Some of the services will be face-to-face programs, some of them will be online programs. There'll be everything from meetups in place through to the incubator, which is a 24-week program, and the growth group, which is an ongoing program. We also have just run what we call the Ag Hack, where we got the agricultural sector in the room talking about and identifying the challenges that they faced. And we're now taking that through to a stream of activity. And we're also been asked to run something called a chamber hack. So our chambers of commerce coming together in a room, again, to align what their challenges are and to work together on proposed solutions. So paper number 6 is talking about alignment with your objectives. You're focused on innovation. We know there's been a huge influx of new people into Mansfield. There's a real dynamic culture starting to grow. I know that you're focused on agriculture and manufacturing. Retail is important, as is tourism. And for tourism, of course, you've got Tourism Northeast. But the rest of the supply side is something that we try and cover. So we see our partnership.
Chair, it's 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes.
Thanks.
I'll stop there. But you see this as a partnership going forwards. So any questions?
Thanks, Selena. Councillors? Councillor Rabi.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Alina, for coming along tonight. I've got a question. In your first letter to us, it says that you'd like to have $10,000 invested into programs. Specifically, where if you were successful in getting $10,000 from Mansfield Shire, which program or programs would you be investing this money into?
So the money from our LGAs goes into our core programming. Some of that is face-to-face programs. Some of that will be online programs monthly. So it might be masterclasses with, for example, somebody talking about financial literacy or somebody talking about how to make your business more competitive. Some of those programs will be a series of major events that we're going to be organising next year across the region. So rather than focusing on small events in local regions, we're also talking about bigger events across the region. And then, of course, the other programs that are funded externally, but to which your participants then have a subsidised place. So $200 instead of $600 is to programs like the Incubator and the Growth Group.
Thank you.
Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Alina, just a couple of questions with respect to the past. In the last 12 months or so, what projects have you or events you've been involved in, or businesses, startups or whatever, in the Mansfield Shire?
So are you including the online events to which we give access to Mansfield Shire?
Yeah, online or
Yeah.
in staged events here. I've got no idea. So just
Yeah. So staged events in town, we haven't done that many of because, of course, with COVID restrictions, and it's taken people a while to A, get the confidence to come out, and B, to actually have the willingness to come out because they're so busy. So we focused very much on the online programs. So over the past 12 months, we've had 6 masterclasses that have been open to everybody across the region. We've had the regular newsletter, which gives people information about programs that we run and also programs and information about other things that they can sign up for. We've got the Thrive Conference, which is coming to the region, for which we've been lobbying very hard. And that, for the past 12 months, whilst we've been incorporating as a not-for-profit, has been where we put our focus. So we don't try to compete with organisations like the Mansfield District Business Association, who do their face-to-face events on the ground once a month, because that's very much their domain. What we try and do is to create programs that are complementary to that, so that we're not fighting for the same market on the ground.
So just taking a step further. So you don't you don't work with individual companies in a startup phase. You work with companies in groups, do you? Is that how I'm interpreting that?
Okay, so yes and no, which sounds confusing. We actually have a Mansfield business who's involved in the latest incubator. Now, the incubator is run online in a group on Mondays for 24 weeks. What this particular lady in Mansfield finds, though, is that Monday is her day that she does most of her business. So we're actually working with her on a one-to-one basis. We've created a program specifically for her, and her program takes place on a Wednesdays. So yes, we will have people in a group, but we will always have somebody working with that group who knows and talks to every individual business on a weekly basis and knows exactly what they're at and puts them in touch with whatever it is that they need at the next point in their journey.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, any more questions for Alina? No? Okay. In that case, thank you very much, Alina, for coming
Lovely.
in.
Thank you for your time.
Presenting to us. You're welcome.
Okay, lovely.
Thanks, thank you.
Bye, nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
You too. Our second presenter is submitter is Tony Tehan. Tony, are you with us? Tony, I think your microphone's on mute. If you can hear us, you can hear me.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tian has disappeared out of the
Disappeared,
waiting
right.
room, and hopefully they'll rejoin with a link.
Okay.
I don't have a contact number to phone them, perhaps we could do that. If you
Yeah, I've got a contact number there.
ask them to rejoin, please.
Sure.
Hi, James.
Hi, Ant. How are you?
Not bad. I don't know what's happened. I tried to turn on the audio. I'll go back to the start.
To go back to the start and try again. Yep. I'll just leave you online while you're doing it.
Connecting now.
Yep. Not through the link, only through the phone at this stage, but we can see that you're there. Is it showing up as your microphone's on mute? There we go.
Am I on channel?
Yes, you're on channel. Yep. We just can't see you yet.
Anyway, I bet not fiddle around anymore. I might lose it.
Okay, no worries yet. Well, welcome to the meeting. And so you've got 3 minutes to talk to your submission, and then there'll be questions after that. So away you go.
Thanks for the opportunity to address council. And I'd just like to commend the budget, the parking and truck bypass initiative, support for the sale yards and the emergency services precinct, support for the Heritage Museum on the station precinct, and support for the preservation of agricultural land. One of the things I'd like to suggest to council is that they investigate the establishment of a weather station, possibly at Lakens Road, in conjunction with the Bureau of Meteorology. I think we need a dedicated weather station for Mansfield. What appears on television is Eildon forecast, and in the local paper, that's Eildon forecast. And I did look up last night, at 8 p.m. last night, and there were 5 websites I looked up, and the temperature given on those were 7, 4, 4, 4, and 6. So you had a disparity of 3 degrees, which could be quite important. The other issue I'd like to bring up is a celebration of 20 years of the new Shire. I think it's very important that we recognise those who brought this about, and in particular I can think of Wilf Twycross, Don Cummins and Peter Howarth. They were very much the leading characters in this. And I think from an educational and a historical point of view, we need to know what happened in the past, and I think to recognise that we wouldn't have our Shire here today except for those people who really supported the demerger, and we'd have 3 councillors and we'd be under the control of Benalla if we hadn't demerged. Another issue is a larger local traffic only sign for Station Street, and one also along the side road to the east of Station Street. I think protection of suburban streets is most important, and anyone who's familiar with city suburbs, particularly in the inner suburbs like North Fitzroy, the council there really look after them. They've got speed humps, they've got one-way streets, and you know, it's not subject to rat runs by traffic. Another issue is blockage of the footpaths in High Street, often particularly for people in wheelchairs, motorised wheelchairs. It can
Excuse
be
me, Mr. Mayor, 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. Keep going, Tony. You've got another half a minute to go.
Okay, good. I'm just about finished. The other issue is just that council review their support for Targa and its economic benefit for Mansfield. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have questions? Councillor Holcomb?
Councillor Holcomb, you're on mute.
Sorry. My apologies. Tony Mark Holcomb, just with respect to the weather station, I sort of understand why you want it based on what you just said earlier about that we've got no accurate reading for this area. Is that how I'm reading that? You just don't trust the numbers coming from outside the area? That's what this is all about?
I think what we're getting, if you look at Mansfield weather.com, the one out at Howes Creek, they give you a Buller, Falls Creek, Mount Hotham, Wangaratta and Albury Wodonga weather, and you just get a generic weather forecast really, which covers the whole northeast. And as you know, the northeast is pretty big, and I just think an automatic weather station in Mansfield, it might be registered on the Melbourne television forecast, I don't know, but at the moment we're really getting Eildon, and I don't really think that's good enough, but it's up to council to decide. I did speak to the Bureau of Meteorology today, and I said, can I do anything to facilitate this? And they said, no, you've got to go through your local council. So that's why I've brought this up.
And Tony, what do you think the cost of establishing this is or would be?
Well, look, I'm not sure. I know I inquired about 3 years ago about getting a weather station on my place, because I must admit I'm a bit of a weather tragic, having been a farmer all my life. It was for a fully fledged automatic weather station, it was about $20,000. That's 3 years ago. So really, the Weather Bureau would pay for it if they had the money. So I think that's where the Shire, maybe they can investigate with the Weather Bureau and see what, it may be just too expensive and beyond the budget, but I think it's worth investigating.
And Tony, sorry to dwell on this. In terms of once it's established, Who manages it? How is it maintained, readings read, all that sort of thing?
It's purely completely automatic, and the Bureau are supposed to maintain the weather stations.
Right.
I know there's one out at Stump Hill on Tom Forrest's place, and his is giving trouble at the moment, and he's trying to get the Bureau to come and give it a service.
So if there's one on Stump Hill, why would we need another one at Lakens Road?
Well, a very different climate there, whether as you move that way towards Fenella, for every few kilometres you go, the rainfall goes up about, 50 to 100 mils per annum. So Stump Hill would be a much higher rainfall, being in that Strathbogie, more in the Strathbogie area.
Yeah, okay, understand. Yep.
Mm.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you.
Good.
Councillor Raby.
Hi, Tony. Steve Raby here.
G'day, Steve.
How you going? Thanks
Good.
for coming along tonight, showing an interest. I'm interested just to get your thoughts on the 20th anniversary of de-amalgamation.
Yeah.
Any sort of thoughts about what you guys would like to see, having been one of them that successfully got us over the line?
Yeah, look, I don't know. Maybe it's sort of a morning tea type celebration at the Shire. I don't think there's any need to do anything too lavish. What I think is important that it's recognised, and particularly amongst newcomers who have come and probably think, this Shire's been here forever, but we're the only demerged Shire in Victoria and probably likely to remain so because people like Don Cummins and Will Twycross did such an amazing job on the old Delatide Shire to convince Benalla that they should be in favour of Mansfield demerging. And of course, I think in the end, Benalla just got sick of them because they can completely outsmart it all the time. And and so I think the important thing for the Shire will be to liaise with Will Twycross and Don Cummins and possibly Peter Houth. He was president of the committee that I was on, and he did a terrific job too. So I'll leave it up to you blokes.
Thanks, Tony. One other question for you. Sorry to keep you too long.
No,
it's interesting you'd like us to examine the economic benefit or not of Targa. What are your thoughts around that?
well, look, I'm always. It's a bit like the Grand Prix in Melbourne. I think the state contributed something like 60 or 70 million dollars to it, and they say the economic benefit is 90 million. Now, I think the figures they use are pretty rubbery, and I just think it's worth examining what the Shire spend. I know quite a bit of it's in kind, but that's still a monetary sum, and maybe you should look at it. I think Mount Buller certainly benefit possibly more than Mansfield do. So, that's why I'd like it looked at.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Good, Steve.
Councillors, any other questions? No, okay. Well, thanks for your presentation, Tony. And obviously we'll discuss those issues. And in the meantime, you'll just have to put up with Fluff on Long Lane and Richard at Pepin Point, Steve at Mansfield, and Aids at South Tolmy for your morning update on the weather and rainfall events. So, anyway, that's always a good place to tune in.
Stick my head out the window.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
Appreciate that, James. Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could now, just the more appropriate recommendation I've just noticed should be that the committee notes the 5 submissions to the budget that were received as detailed in the section key issues of the report, and that 2 submitters, being Ilana Young and Tony Tian, spoke to their submissions at this meeting. The rest of the recommendation shouldn't be there.
Okay. Just before we go to a recommendation, it's be noted that there was 3 more submitters that presented, 3 more submissions from the, and they were from the Mansfield Primary School that were sent in. They didn't want to talk to their submissions, but they were from Josh, Solomon and Parker, and well done for them for putting in submissions about a splash park in Mansfield, and they'll be passed on to the right authority. Councillors, can I have a motion in relation to item 8.1.1, please? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that the committee notes the 5 submissions that was received as detailed in the key section key issues of the report. 2 that Elena Young and Tony Tian presented on their submissions.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Can I have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Webb, would you like to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just that it's good to have engagement with the community and people paying attention as to what we're doing.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Anyone else like to speak to that motion? Councillor Rabi.
I think I'd like to take this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to speak about the 3 outstanding submissions that we got from the primary school. Myself, I was very touched to receive submissions from the 3 children in grade 2. And I have to say that those 3 kids, thank you very much for sending them in. And they really made my day. And keep an interest in your council. So I can see 3 potential councillors here in 20 or 30 years, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. If there's Councillor Sladden.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, do we need to include in that recommendation the date of when the budget will be decided upon, the 28th of June, and whether we need to include that in the recommendation and that the submitters will receive a written response? Does that need to be part of the recommendation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think so. That is part of what council would do when council considers the budget and submissions. So council has a role. This committee is only set up to hear submissions, not to make any decisions around the submissions. So they're naturally referred to. So you hear the submissions tonight, and the submissions are all referred to council to make a decision on.
And we won't notify them of our decision?
That would be up to council to thank submitters for their submissions.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam CEO. Thanks, Councillor Sladden. So all those in favour of that motion put by Councillor Webb, against the motion is carried. Item 8.1.2 is the consideration of submissions to the revised revenue and rating plan 2021 25. And given that there are no submissions were received, councillors, could I have a motion in relation to item 8.1.2? Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt at this point again. But again, the recommendation should be that the committee notes no submissions were received, no other actions.
Thanks, Madam CEO.
Sorry.
So, Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that council notes that no submissions were received.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb.
The committee notes, please. Sorry, that the committee notes.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Yes, the committee notes no submissions were received.
Thanks, Councillor. The seconder, Councillor Sladen. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? That motion is passed. Item 9 is the close of the meeting. So I'd just like to thank everyone for their attendance tonight. Thank the submitters again for submitting to their submissions, and thank anyone in the general public who was out there watching this evening. Thank you to my fellow councillors and staff, and good night.
Good night.
Right.
Are we off air now? Moira? Can't hear you.